David sat on his couch, staring at the blank walls of his apartment. It had been months since he moved to the city for his new job, but instead of excitement, he felt empty. He had no friends here, and his days followed the same routine: work, eat, and come back to an empty home. The silence was deafening. Some nights, David scrolled through his phone, looking at pictures of his friends back in his hometown. They seemed happy, surrounded by family and loved ones. He missed that feeling of connection, but he didn't know how to create it here. One Friday evening, after another long, lonely week, David broke down. He realized he couldn't go on like this. Something needed to change. He remembered his late grandmother's words, "Happiness doesn't find you, you have to build it." He decided to start small, taking one step at a time. David thought about the things that once made him happy. He remembered how much he loved photography. His camera had been collecting dust on a shelf since he moved. The next day, he took it out and went to the nearby park. At first, it felt awkward, but as he started taking pictures of trees, birds, and children playing, he felt a spark of joy. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The following week, David searched online for local photography groups. He found a weekend meetup for amateur photographers. Nervous but determined, he decided to join. The group was warm and welcoming. They shared tips, exchanged ideas, and admired each other's work. David met people who shared his interests, including a man named Ryan who invited him to a photo walk the next weekend. While browsing a community board, David noticed a poster asking for volunteers at a local animal shelter. They needed help walking dogs and taking photos for adoption profiles. Photography and animals? It seemed perfect. Volunteering at the shelter brought unexpected joy. The wagging tails of the dogs and the gratitude of the staff gave David a sense of purpose. Slowly, he began to feel like he was part of something bigger than himself. One evening, Ryan from the photography group invited David for coffee. Over steaming cups, they talked about their struggles. Ryan admitted he also felt lonely when he first moved to the city. Hearing this made David feel less alone. Encouraged, David started reaching out more. He invited colleagues to lunch and joined a running group in his neighborhood. Little by little, he built connections. One of the hardest things for David was admitting his feelings of loneliness. But as he opened up to new friends, he found they were more supportive than he expected. Sharing his struggles deepened his relationships and helped him see that everyone, at some point, feels lost. Months later, David's life looked completely different. His weekends were filled with photography meetups, shelter volunteering, and brunches with new friends. He wasn't afraid to step out of his comfort zone anymore. David learned that loneliness wasn't permanent. By rediscovering his passions, reaching out, and being kind to himself, he built a life he loved. One evening, as David sat on his couch editing photos, he looked around his apartment. It was no longer just a quiet, empty space, it was home. For the first time in a long time, he felt truly happy.